We're going to discuss The Boys, episode 4 of season 2, and get into all the details of that episode. Everybody here saw it, right?
Yes.
Correctamundo.
Great. And the title for this episode is Nothing Like It in the World. In this episode, Huey and Lonzo, or wait a minute, not Lonzo. That's his real actor's name. Character's name is what's his character's name again?
Mother's Milk.
Mother's Milk.
Mother's Milk. And Starlight go on a road trip. They go to discover the mystery of Liberty. The big mystery behind that, which is a lead their contact told about, who is the Colonel. She's the person that basically distills all the information to them. The Colonel also distills information to Butcher about the whereabouts of his wife, that she is in a vault kind of town, I guess, makeshift town, you would say.
Yeah.
And it also deals with it's more Homelander versus Stormfront, and basically Homelander on a warpath against everybody, which is never a good thing. The primary, and we're going to be, I guess we could say it's spoilers for this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, spoilers. Okay. So one of the big things in this episode is that the Stormfront reveal. Which was all about she has been alive for at least 70 years, basically terrorizing people of color for that long, because what Huey and Mother's Milk and Starlight do is they travel to North Carolina and talk to the daughter of someone that possibly could have been Starlight, who back then 70 years ago was going by a different name, and that was Lady Liberty. And when you see the flashback they show of the superhero killing somebody, you go like, yeah, that's Stormfront. I would know that racism anywhere. Yeah. I mean, it seems pretty on point.
And the voice and everything.
And that, voice and everything. So I want to discuss that a little bit. Also, just the fact that the opening scene of the episode was pretty creepy.
Yeah, that took me aback with the reveal that Homelander is going to a cabin and hanging out with a doppelganger who is disguised as Stillwell from the first season.
They're not just hanging out.
Yeah.
It took me... It took... Oh, yeah, he fucking the shit out of him.
You think he's having sex with her? I just assumed that was just more of just like the mother play, more of the just
indulging Homelander's mommy fetish.
Yeah, I don't know if he was actually really having sex with her, or just indulging just kind of the mommy stuff.
Bro, they were fucking.
That's even a more disturbing thought.
Especially like towards the end of that episode.
Yeah, they didn't need to show it. They were just suggesting it the whole time. But at the end of the episode where where Doppelganger turns into himself, into Homelander, and it's just like, I'll go down on you as you.
I just love Anthony Starr's performance in that whole sequence, because like there's a moment where you can tell he was thinking about it for a second.
He was having too much fun with that.
Yeah, is it gay if it's yourself?
Not really. Is it gay to love yourself, fellas?
That got into just complete realms of just creepy. I mean, that was just like, wow, that is pretty disturbing. And also discussing Queen Maeve, because they go on, kind of like talk shows, how people do, like these soups are treated like as celebrities, so as celebrities go on these talk shows, and they meet, Maria Menounos, who is played by herself, playing herself, and Homelander outs Queen Maeve, who throughout the series we learn, is a lesbian and has had a relationship with a woman, And do you think that he did do something to her girlfriend, or do you think that she is okay, or do you think there's going to be a major follow-up with that later on?
I have no idea, and that is what is so frightening. Because like 2 episodes ago, she brings up just a guy that she was like sitting next to at an award show, and then the next day that guy was like burned alive.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where they did a good job kind of leaving that up to our imagination.
And I feel like Homelander is just going to use that as leverage for Queen Maeve for whatever he's planning to do with Stormfront.
Because he's trying to get.
Oh, that's a good point.
He's trying to get everybody in order under him. So, I think.
Yeah.
Whether Elena is okay or not, I think that is kind of like his bargaining chip. Yeah, I agree, Nick.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, he may use her in the future as leverage against Stormfront. That is a very good point. But just the fact that how much he is on a warpath against everybody. You know, like there's a scene with Starlight where he basically just chokes her in the elevator. I mean, I've never seen anything that bad happen in an elevator since like Solange and Jay-Z. So, I mean, I mean, he's just holding her up against. Basically because of what she did in the prior episode of not executing his order and killing Huey, and she didn't, she did not do that as quickly as he would have wanted her to, and just the fact that he's just seriously just on edge, doesn't trust anybody, thinks that Stormfront is trying to really usurp his position, and when they have these kind of standoffs, Homelander and Stormfront, it is very interesting to see because you can tell like Stormfront is still. Do you think she's scared of him still, just in a little way?
I don't think she's scared of him so much as she's just showing enough like of I'm intimidated by you to placate him.
Yeah.
But in reality, she's manipulating him a lot like Stillwell did in the first season.
Oh, yeah. And I think that is something that will... Like, I'm calling it now. They are going to fuck in this season. But I think it's coming back to his whole obsession with motherly figures. And I think Stormfront, to some degree, because she is older, she is going to kind of fill in that kind of position. And she has something to teach him as well. But
is she positioned as being somebody that's older than him?
So he probably doesn't know it, but she is, due to the context of her being Liberty. She is obviously at least in her 70s, so she's going to come off and probably approach him more so in a motherly sense to some degree. Like, there is a massive age difference and a massive maturity difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think my favorite parts of those scenes is just like how like more and more unhinged Homelander gets as he's like saying, "No, you're not in charge. I am." It's like watching a toddler have a tantrum.
Yeah, and she is the mom that's like kind of, I don't want to call her the cool mom because she's a racist, but she is playing the cool mom kind of approach where she's just like, "All right, calm down, Billy." Or what's his real name? John?
John, I think is.
And she's giving him like little treats and like little like, all right, like, you want to know how you get the people back on your side? You don't try to cater to them. You make them aggressive and you turn them into soldiers. And I think that's what she's trying to do with him. She's trying to manipulate him into one of her little pawns, very powerful pawn soldiers.
It's you bring up a good point because in the episode she does her kind of clan rally type situation where she's trying to mobilize people and basically with that as we touched on before with discussing episodes 1 to 3 and just discussing The Boys in general, of how the show touches on such social topics and things of that nature, of it's very much of her position coming in as what Homelander represents. He represents the system. He represents what they've had, and maybe has constantly failed in some people's eyes, and then she represents that outsider person that's criticizing that establishment, and how someone like that can gain so much popularity just being an outsider, even though they're just as much of an insider as just anyone else. And kind of how it shows that, because there's always these memes, like you see online, where it's like, like US in like what the US thinks it is, and it shows like a picture of Superman, and then US in reality, and it shows like a picture of Homelander.
And ironically, that Superman has the higher body count.
I mean, at least Homelander didn't nuke an entire city and then kiss his girlfriend in the middle of in the rubble.
Homelander kills with purpose.
So it does, you see those memes like that of showing like the U.S. in reality, and then what the U.S. thinks it is. And Stormfront is that kind of that same thing of it's what the U.S. kind of pretends to be. Like Homeland is what the U.S. pretends to be, and then Stormfront is what the U.S. actually is.
But
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like he's kind of that face.
Yeah.
Oh, were you gonna say something, Chase?
I was gonna say she's very much kind of just a superhero Trump.
Pretty
but
much,
a little bit.
Yeah,
better.
very very much. A lot of her dialogue is like lifted straight from not just the Trump campaign, but a lot of American paranoia after 9/11.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, these terrorists are gonna come into your country. They could be here right now. A lot of McCarthyism.
Yeah.
But since she's
fly over your borders.
But since she's like a superhero and I'm not gonna lie, she's beautiful. It kind of comes off as a little bit easier for people to digest. So I think that's what makes her so dangerous.
Yeah, you're right. Aya Cash can get it, but she is like.
But she is so scary.
Yeah, she is. Oh, she is horrifying.
And how she's able to, just like in real life, weaponizing internet culture, right? Using the memes.
Oh, that just great line is, yeah, you spent $200 million on this, like, Save America, and I have 5 guys churning out memes.
Through RB cards. She's giving them RB gift cards.
Like couldn't even get them Subway gift cards. Had to get them Arby's gift cards. Like, who the fuck is eating at Arby's? Like, I'm 25 years on this earth. I've never met a motherfucker who ate at Arby's
willingly.
ever.
Nobody likes Arby's. Arby's is just there.
Yeah, it just exists.
But not gonna lie, those roast beef sandwiches are kind of good.
I wouldn't know. I'd never tried them.
I've never had Arby's a day in my life, and I will maintain that consistency. But it shows that she is that person stoking that fear, that paranoia, because the best way to get people on your side is to make them scared, make them scared of something.
Emotion sells, anger sells,
and I think that
flying over the borders, everything.
And I think that is something that Homelander is going to start using to his advantage.
The fear aspect.
Yeah, and it's either going to be more so like get people to fear him, which he already has going on with the 7, or it's going to be him weaponizing people's fears in a future tragedy that they are inevitably going to cause, obviously. Yeah.
That's a very good and interesting point. That's something that Homelander may do. Do you think at all Stormfront is going to make it past this season? Because I think she is. What do you all think?
I think like the way to end this show is because you've set up Homelander to be very much the big bad of this show, and you're setting Stormfront up as someone who is so much worse. So I would be fine if like at the season finale it's like a shift away from Homelander and Stormfront becomes the big bad of this show.
I don't foresee that happening. What I think will happen is Homelander is going to learn from Stormfront, and as soon as her use in terms of those lessons that will be endowed to him is over with, I think that the show is going to kill her. Last week I said she was going to die this season, but I'm kind of leaning off of it. I think it's going to be more either next season or the season after, before the finale. But I think Homelander is the big bad because they introduced him so early on to be the big bad.
Yeah.
So I think it's him growing into that worse of a threat. So he's going to become worse than Stormfront.
Okay.
Another key points to discuss this episode, just like some smaller things. You see more of the exploration of Frenchie's relationship with Kimiko, and you understand why he has such that certain attachment to her. Because
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I feel like in the episodes prior to this, that wasn't really as well developed, and this is like the first time where it's getting into his psychology and his guilt over him letting the Colonel's grandchildren die.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to make up for that.
Yeah. And I also do think it does kind of, because at first when he tries to kiss her, I'm like, ew, gross. What's wrong with you? But then I realized when he's talking to his lady friend, what's her name, Sherry?
Yeah, Sherry.
That's just kind of how he knows to cope, you know?
Yeah, that's his coping mechanism.
So I thought that was interesting to play on. And I think this episode really did a great job fulfilling what your prior complaint was about the boys in terms of them not having that fleshed out psychology.
Yeah, Frenchie gets fleshed out a lot more, and I think the two MVPs of this episode, outside of Anthony Starr, who is always great, are Aaron Moriarty as Starlight and Laz Alonso as Mother's Milk. I feel like they get the most to do in this episode, more than they've had in the show prior.
When they go on the road trip, when it's those three of them, he's a lot more fleshed out, discovering more of his backstory. He tells a story about his father and his backstory, and he feels like a more fleshed out character. And I would also say, like, you get a little bit more sense of the relationship between Huey and Starlight. How they do make a good couple. I mean, they do.
Yeah, their chemistry is on fire, and especially when that whole sequence starts out, they're just in the car together and they're like playing music.
They love Billy Joel, man.
Yeah.
Like
Billy Joel's making a big check off this season alone.
He's just like Scrooge McDuck with money after all the royalty checks come in.
So I mean that stuff was really well done, I thought. Also the stuff with Butcher and finally getting to meet his wife after thinking she was dead for so long. One thing I didn't like about that was when the Colonel's giving him the information about going to meet his wife and telling him she's being held in this Vought-made kind of facility. She's like, oh my God, the security is just so tough. I don't know how you're gonna get through all that. And it just seems like when he goes there, he just throws a rope over the top of the border wall here. I'm like, who the fuck designed this? Is this Trump's border wall here? Like, he just throws a rope over the top of it and climbs down. I'm like,
on camera.
Where's the security?
Did you because Amazon, they released like a little 5-minute short video called Butcher. And it's like the events immediately after he wakes up in that Tony Cicero's, and he like goes to one of his old war buddies, and you see like pictures of him in British Special Forces. So he has like that kind of background to where he's great in combat. He can be stealthy when he needs to. Yeah. So watching that prior to this episode, that didn't bother me as much. And you can see that there are still consequences to that. Like, he gets caught on camera.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, he still does get caught on camera, but it was just like...
And now Black Noir is after him, which, if you saw the first episode, be very nervous.
Yeah, and there's a good preview for the upcoming episode that we'll talk about shortly. Him talking to his wife and just about trying to escape, and the conflict that she kind of has now having a son, and how he's like, well, I mean, you sure just don't want to leave that little motherfucker there and just kind of head out. I mean, they're gonna be looking for him everywhere. I mean, we kind of have a chance to kind of make it. I mean, they're not just gonna let him go, and it's interesting to see them kind of set up a relationship, because she does. I mean, that's still, her son as well, as just as much as it is Homelander's, and she's been raising him all this time, and how she's trying to be like his Ma Kent, trying to not turn it into a similar situation with Homelander, showing like what nurture can do against nature, even though he comes from such a person who's an absolute monster. What vibes were you guys getting from that whole stuff with the butcher scenes and his wife scenes?
Well, I feel like they talk a little bit about their relationship prior, and how like Butcher is very much a guy with serious anger issues. Like she mentions, like, yeah, on your best day, you were a bad day away from pounding someone to death in a parking lot. And then you take that kind of anger and then you put him in that situation where his wife, by all accounts, was sexually assaulted by the biggest superhero in the world, and you're gonna send that man on a warpath.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of like poisoned him against Supes entirely. Yeah. Like he hates all of them. Even when the first season, when Huey was getting into that relationship with Starlight, he was always like really dismissive of it. She's like, she's one of them. And yeah. I feel like that's the only way he sees that kid.
Yeah. And she also kind of alluded to his feelings earlier, before they got married, that he kind of always hated Supes, just always.
Well, like even in little flashbacks in season 1 when they were together, it was like he was hanging out at Vought because his wife worked there, and he was more or less cordial and civil around the Supes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So I'm happy that, well, I'm not happy that it happened, but I'm relieved that they finally answered the question whether or not she did get sexually assaulted or not. Because
that was like left up in the air.
And
at the end of season 1,
when they were initially talking that night, the way she was talking about, you always put me on a pedestal, all this, that, and the third, and then the look in her eyes, I was concerned that they were going to play it as the, oh, I cheated aspect, because the look in her eyes was looking very like distressed. But I'm kind of more thankful that the distress was more so concern for her kid rather than
and like in the episodes prior, like she was like begging that doctor, hey, you told me I would never have to see him again. That was the deal.
Yeah. Because I thought they were going to make the twist during the day, like, I'm sorry, I'm not the woman you thought I was, I cheated. But I'm thankful that it's
I'm glad they didn't do that. Glad that they didn't do that. Because it just would remove a lot of the anger that he has and the tension of the show, I think, if they did something like that.
Yeah.
I think. I think that just to wrap up, did you all see the bits with the Deep? I mean, what did you think about that?
Like the interviews you're talking about with the talking heads.
Yeah.
I thought at first I was just like, what are they doing? Like, who's supposed to be behind the camera with these talking heads? And then when they revealed it was him trying to pick a wife, I died laughing. I thought that was so funny. It was like jarring when you initially watch it, but like it pays off, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like one of those non sequiturs in the whole episode. It's like, wait, what is this, and why do they keep coming back to it? And then the reveal comes. Oh,
it's just as creepy Cole.
Like he's trying to find his own.
It's further solidifying that this church is a cult.
It's Scientology.
Yeah. He's trying to find his own Katie Holmes. Just trying to. just find the love of his life. I loved it when that woman said, like, it's like, but I choose her. It's like, yeah, you have chosen. You choose her, and she just picked the person for him. And it's like, well, he's like, I guess. I mean, yeah, sure, why not? So yeah, those bits throughout the show, leading to the conclusion of, like, you see, like, it's actually Deep who's interviewing. Well, I mean, he's not really doing anything. I mean, it's really the main woman who's interviewing him, the main person from the Church of the Collective. And so I thought those were kind of funny bits throughout the show. That was really well done. Nice, because that was pretty much the end of the episode, pretty much.
And the best thing about the show is, like, it gets really, really dark and violent, but it also, like, has those really nice comedy beats, which are much needed.
And it kind of fit with the whole theme of the episode, which was all about love,
Pretty much. And there was just, like, that bit, talked a little bit, we're going to just discuss it a little bit, like the whole A-Train thing of possibly being replaced, which I don't think is going to happen now because of the whole, like, when Maria Menounos asked him the question about diversity, and it's like, it says, well, over 95% of superheroes are white, and then even in the 7, he's like, oh, well, that's not true because you got A-Train, he's black,
and he had to think about it for a second. We got A-Train, who's black. We have Black Noir, who doesn't identify as any one race.
Yeah, so he can,
and it was like speaking out about, like, that a little bit of the Oscars so white controversy that came out a few years ago. A little bit of more inclusion.
And it's also like that when you call somebody racist and they're like, oh, but, like, I have a black friend.
That's exactly it.
I can't be racist. I have a black friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible for me to be racist.
Yeah, if I can't be racist, we have a black friend.
Yeah,
we have a black hero in the 7.
Yeah,
that we're going to replace.
I voted for a black president. I mean, I voted for a black president 3 times. How could I possibly be racist? It doesn't make sense.
I would have voted for him for a 3rd term if I could.
Everybody listening to this, hey, find us at Twitter, Afternoon Tune, Facebook, Afternoon Tune. Check out our Facebook page. If you're listening to this video, you already know what to do. All right, do all that fun stuff that helps support us. The liking and subscribing. You already know how to do all that jazz. If you want to send us an email, theafternoontune@gmail.com. Chase, final word to the people.
Peace. You can find me at Mr. Chase Mack at Twitter, Instagram, wherever.
Awesome. Nick.
All right, thanks for listening, everybody. You can find me at Night and Day Nick on Twitter and Instagram.
And to all you people out there, whenever you listen to this, hey, don't forget to always stay tuned.